Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Lee The Dorest Spur and this is your weekly Tottenham news review. If you're watching this on YouTube and you don't currently subscribe to the channel, please do feel free to hit that subscribe. It really helps the channel. If you like the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you want to comment, please do that. All those things are really helpful to the channel. If you're listening to us on audio platforms, please do consider giving us a follow and give us a review if you can. Thanks. So, weekly review. What a difficult week after last week's video where we were really upbeat and positive about the forthcoming match against Nottingham Forest after beating Atletico Madrid and drawing against Liverpool, you know, a result we wasn't expecting. Yeah, it's all come crashing down around my ears, hasn't it? I obviously spoke far too soon. So let's talk about Forest. Well, initially let's talk about the fans for Forest. So great work by the guys on social media to drum up so much interest in the team, and into the event of getting everyone together to sing, to let off flares, to wave flags and all that kind of stuff. THFC flags were obviously there, lending the flags out and so on. Really built the atmosphere ahead of the game. Thousands of people lining the streets like a parade. Fantastic. You cannot complain and say that this club doesn't have very loyal fans that are, you know, dead keen to get us out of this trouble. Unfortunately, that's not matched by the performance of the players on the pitch. Absolutely gutted at the result. Losing 3-0 to a team that are below you, that then gets them to leapfrog you and pull you further into trouble is really concerning. The only saving grace we had was that West Ham didn't win either. So it kept us out of the bottom three. And I do feel that being in the bottom three is going to really impact. It's going to really impact confidence and attitude and so on. And that really does worry me. I think all the while we can stay out of that bottom three, that gives you that little bit of emphasis more. So yeah, terrible game, terrible result, and terrible second half performance and terrible substitutions. I was fairly pleased with the start of the game. I thought we came out with energy, with the right mindset and so on. Little bit confused as to how Xavi Simons didn't make that starting 11, if I'm honest. And a kind of change of formation with Porro being pushed up higher on the pitch. Listen, I've asked for it before. I've suggested it before. Let's get Porro further up the pitch as a right winger. But at the same time as that, you know, I don't want to take all the creativity out of the team. I mean, Xavi Simons is the only one providing any real creativity. Some good players in that team that day that kind of made a big difference. I thought Matisse Tell was really good. I thought the standout for me was Archie Gray. I thought he was absolutely outstanding and has been one of our best players of late. Decent performance in the end, for bearing in mind he got beat 3 times by Vicario, who made some outstanding saves. I think in the one where he was kind of already on the ground and he bent his arm back to actually save us there. I thought he had a fairly decent game ahead of him going off, obviously now for his surgery, and they're going to be out for, you know, obviously the international break, and then potentially a couple of games after that, giving Kinski an opportunity to get back into the squad and redeem himself for that terrible performance against Atletico. But yeah, overall, I thought first half we played really solidly, did really, really well. Forest were fighting for their lives. But then, well, one momentary switch off at the back post, Van der Ven not even making an effort to jump, and you're 1-0 down on 44 minutes, and the narrative changes. And I said at the time to my mate who I was with, that's it, that's really going to kill us. Now, this is where the mentality shift comes into play. We came out in the second half, substitutions, Jed Spence goes off, Van der Ven goes off. Neither did anything in particular whilst on the pitch, to be fair. But Archie Gray then drops back into defence, and the whole thing changes. And then after that, you're chasing the game. You go down 2-0, and that was it. Game over. Richarlison being taken off and changed for Mwani, a mind-blowing. I just did not get that at all. Made absolutely no sense to me. I felt that Richarlison, whilst he needs lots of opportunities, he will get one in the end in the back of the net. You get a goal and the whole thing changes. But for him to come off, he was obviously disappointed, and I think the fans were obviously disappointed. Solanke was offering not very much, so if anyone was going to come off out of those two options, it had to be him, surely. And then, of course, Matisse Tell picking up an injury and going off for 67 minutes. Yeah, it's just everything. When you're down there, everything goes against you. When you're up there, you get every decision. When you're down there, you get nothing. And that's how it feels. Certainly, I didn't feel the referee did as many favours at all. I'm not saying it's his fault that we lost, but a few decisions in there. The one where Xavi Simons gets fouled, no foul, they score. The one with the guy who studied Archie Gray. If that's Romero, he's off. I just, we've seen it even recently. So it's the inconsistency that does my head in. I'm just so fed up with the inconsistencies of it all. But listen, it is what it is. That we are where we are. We have to kind of look forward from that scenario. So going on from that story, there's not a lot more you can say about it. The result is the result. It's a terrible result for us. But what that's done is it's then prompted the whole circus again around the managerial position. Tudor has been coming under massive pressure. He's managed to gain 1 point in the Premier League out of 5 games so far. No instant bounce or anything like that. And then, sadly, his father passes away on the same day we get battered and humiliated by Forest. And I feel for him. I absolutely do feel for him. I've said it on previous videos of how difficult it is to lose your dad. At the same time as then being the manager of Tottenham Hotspur, who are getting absolutely nothing and are flirting with relegation weekly. It has to be said that if there is going to be a change, it's got to be now. If you're going to change it, it has to be now. Unless you're seeing something in this team that tells you that they are up for this fight and Tudor is getting more out of them, then for me, I feel you have to make a change. Some of his substitutions, some of his player setups and lineups and stuff have been baffling, and I don't feel like we're getting the kind of bounce from him, or the view for the players are absolutely aligned with what he's trying to do. So for me, if we're going to make a change, you've got to make a change now. We've got a couple of weeks or 3 weeks off from playing football for the club. They're off on international break and so on. Now's the perfect time. And it wouldn't be too embarrassing for Tudor to lose his job at a time like this, because it can be done as mutual consent and so on. Which then brings us on to what has been being said constantly since that game, and it all revolves around Roberto Deserby. It feels like we're kind of going through all the different motions of, no, he's not going to go anywhere until the season's over. to, yes, he potentially could go there because they're offering him a guarantee that if Tottenham are relegated, he can still walk away and pick up something else. And it's who to know. You know, Romano is saying no, he's not going anywhere. The Italian press are saying he's not going anywhere, but then there's other reports in the Italian newspaper saying that he potentially could, and he is open to it, keen to get his hands dirty, blah blah blah, believes that he can do the job. So there's lots of all that. What that does mean, of course, is that the Pochettino story dies a death, because Deserby is not going to come just for 7 games. You know, he wants a contract, and it'll only come for just the 7 games if we still get relegated. So it kind of makes no sense, because we don't know what's Pochettino's view about whether he wants to come and manage Tottenham regardless of where we are. Because if he brings Deserby in and he keeps you up, you've got to keep Deserby. You're not going to sack him after the 7 games because Pochettino all of a sudden becomes available. Equally, if we get relegated and Deserby goes, does Pochettino want to come and manage in the Championship? So it's a massive risk in my view. I have seen a story today that Pochettino, I think it was Casey Keller talking about it, saying that, you know, Pochettino could leave the US and come to Tottenham if they really wanted him. He could see it happening. I personally don't, because I think he's always been quite committed to seeing out his contracts and so on. So it would be an odd one for him to walk away at this point. And Pochettino himself has said, through various sources, Ozzy Ardiles has quoted that he's not been contacted. He's told fans on the plane to Atletico that he's not been contacted and so on. Now, I know he's under contract and it will be tapping up and all the rest of it, but you can't tell me there's not talks with, you know, maybe his agent to say, look, would he be interested after his contract finishes? What's his situation, blah, blah, blah. Whether he wants to tell us any of that, that's another story, right? Why would he want to be open and honest about that? So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where we go. But Deserby is the one that's getting all the attention. So it's just about whether you want Deserby to come in or not, whether they believe he is the right person, and if they're prepared to lose out on the Pochettino thing. I'm not even sure if the board are really interested in Pochettino, whether they all want him or don't want him or what. But until that itch is scratched, I think it's always going to be there in the background. Deserby seems to be the front runner. That's the one that's kind of really, you know, building up steam on social media and in the press and all the rest of it. So, but again, I don't know, is he the right man? I don't know. He did well at Brighton, but then is that because Brighton have such a good structure? Anyone seems to do well there. Bit like Brentford, how, you know, they can change their manager and still keep achieving what they need to achieve and recruiting who they need to recruit and all the rest of it, and seem to find these gems, a bit like Bournemouth, you know, keep finding all these gems and so on. We've had an Italian before in Antonio Conte. Look how that turned out, you know, an absolute winner who fell out with the board and was unhappy with the lack of investment and so on. So again, you know, could that happen? From what I understand, Deserby is a fiery Italian. So nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is ever guaranteed in football anyway. But, you know, it's just going to be one of those. They're going to have to wait and see what comes of it. And it'll be someone else's decision. But for me, I just feel like we are going to continue this rinse and repeat situation until we find someone who can actually have the right combination, get the right backing. It just never seems to come. If you look at Pochettino, had a really good team, but didn't have a squad, and that was his downfall in the end. The recruitment of the players to support and the ongoing development of regurgitating and recharging that squad. Ferguson used to do it all the time. So yeah, so manager situation, another big story of the week. The final one I was just going to touch on, because I know I've been rambling on for quite a while, is the Archie Gray one. There's a lot of interest in Archie Gray from Manchester United. Been a difficult one for them, being that he's a Leeds boy with lots of Leeds connections and all the rest of it, his family connections and so on. But obviously they are hovering like vultures, that if Tottenham go down, that they're likely to try to get him. But they're not on their own. There's talks of Borussia Dortmund, Aston Villa, Chelsea, all kind of vying. But for me, the kid strikes at me as the sort of person who's not in any rush, who knows his worth, who knows he's developing, who knows he's getting good minutes at Tottenham. And I think he's shown with his performances of late in his proper position of midfield, if he can get that regularity, I think he would probably stay even in the Championship. Because I think, with all due respect to Aston Villa, I think he'd be looking higher than Aston Villa. Man United would have to be challenging for trophies as they were in the, sort of in the 2000s to really catch his eye. I think he'd be more likely to go to City at this moment in time, depending on what happens with their 113 charges, to go to somewhere like that, because I think there are bigger teams out there that would have interest, certainly abroad, in teams like Real Madrid or Barcelona or Bayern Munich. All those clubs have got a big draw, and are likely to give him Champions League football consistently and aid his development as a player. So for me, I do think he's likely to stay. I don't think he's going to be turned by Man United, but I could be totally wrong. I don't know the boy. I just going on how he kind of comes across in kind of interviews and so on, and in the manner of him playing. So yeah, I'm not overly concerned about that side of things, but we shall see. Now listen, I've rambled on for a very long time. If you've made it to the end of this video, you must have liked it. So if you liked it, thumbs up. If you wouldn't mind, that would be absolutely fantastic. As I said, if you can subscribe to Chris's channel, if you don't already, that would be great as well. I've got my own channel, Lee The Dorest Spur. You'll find me very, very easily. If you like this sort of video, if you like my style and the sort of things that I'm saying, please do come over there and give me a sub. It would be great to have you on board. And as I said at the beginning of the video, if you are listening on an audio, please do give it a follow and leave a review as well. That would be fantastic as well. All these things tend to help algorithms and so on, so more people get to see the videos and the audios that are done on the channel. So thanks for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next one. Up the Spurs.